number of things to think about. One, it's very different to exchange feedback with a friend and to ask for feedback as a leader. When you're in a position of power over someone, and if you ask them for feedback, it's a very different dynamic than if you are a peer or a friend. So you need to keep that in mind, and that's where creating the safety comes in. The second thing is Chris Argyris came up with a model called the Ladder of Inference, where he said that normally we communicate based on our conclusions, and that our conclusions are developed from some sort of underlying data that we observe through a bunch of steps to lead to our conclusions. And the concept he came to was the idea that when you share your feedback, instead of sharing your conclusions, actually share the data that you observe, because the other person's going to hear it in a very different way. So if I think, well, you made a whole lot of errors in this document, you did a pretty sloppy job, and my feedback to you is that I think you do sloppy work. Well, you're going to take that very personally. Whereas if I point out that you made 7 errors in this one page of the document, that's me sharing my observation of what I observed, and you're going to be able to hear that in a very different way. So that's the second thing. And so the third thing is there's invariably a cultural component to this, right? In some cultures, we communicate much more directly, and in other cultures, we have to be much more discreet, much more indirect. It's been said that in the UK, if you say to someone, I think that's a very courageous idea, what that means is, I think you're totally crazy. Right? But you can't just say that, because the mode of communication is a lot more indirect. Whereas, I did classes in Germany, and my students in the class would raise their hand and go, your idea doesn't make any sense. So, you have to adjust to the culture you're in and the power dynamic. And you have to be thoughtful about what you're communicating in terms of the difference between your conclusions and the data that you observe. And the final thing I want to say is feedback works much better if you can get invited to give it. A lot of times we barge in and just give someone feedback without asking them, without warning them. So what I like to do is I like to say to someone, I've observed some things that I think might be helpful for you to hear. Can I share them with you? And then I'll wait until they say yes. And once they say yes, they're listening to what I say in a very different way, and they're going to be much more receptive. Whereas if I just go ahead and do it, they may or may not even hear what I have to say. They're going to have such a strong emotional reaction to what I'm saying and to the fact that I'm saying it, that what I'm saying is going to be completely missed.